Welcome to another episode of She's Evolving. I'm Elina, your host and a medical endocrinologist. For years, I've spent my days looking at hormones, metabolic rates, and the physical blueprints of aging. But today, we are stepping outside the lab and into the world of dreams, risks, and new beginnings. We are talking about entrepreneurship after 50. It is a topic that sits at the intersection of our biology and our deepest desires. And I'm Julia, a clinical psychologist. My work usually involves helping women navigate the internal landscapes of their lives, their self-esteem, their relationships, and that quiet, persistent voice that starts to whisper around the age of 45 or 50, asking, "Is this all there is?" Today, we're answering that voice with a resounding no. In fact, we're saying that this might be the most fertile ground you've ever walked on. If you've ever looked at a blank page or a business idea and felt that spark, but then immediately doused it with the thought that you're too old or it's too late, this conversation is specifically for you. You know, Julia, I see it in my clinic all the time. Women come in feeling fatigued, not just physically, but existentially. They feel like they've spent 30 years building someone else's dream, whether that's a corporation's bottom line or just the infrastructure of a family. And suddenly, at 50, the hormones shift, the perspective shifts, and there's this realization: I have so much more to give, but I want to give it to something that looks like me.
It's that alignment piece that is so crucial. When we are 20, we start businesses or careers based on ambition, on what the world tells us is success. But at 50, we've been through the fire. We've survived losses. We've raised children. We've navigated office politics. We finally know who we are. Entrepreneurship at this stage isn't just about making money. It's about a radical act of self-expression. I remember when I decided to shift my own practice. I had been in a large hospital system for 2 decades. It was safe, it was prestigious, but I was miserable. I felt like a cog in a machine. When I hit 52, something snapped. I realized I didn't want to just treat symptoms. I wanted to create a holistic space for women to thrive. People told me I was crazy to leave a guaranteed pension and a settled career. They said, "Elina, you're at the finish line. Why start a new race?" But I didn't feel like I was at a finish line. I felt like I was finally at the starting block of a race I actually wanted to run. That's such a powerful distinction. The finish line mentality is a trap. It's based on an outdated model of life where you work, you peak at 40, and then you just fade out until retirement. But psychologically, women in their 50s are often entering their queen archetype phase. We have the wisdom, we have the emotional regulation that we lacked in our 20s, and we have a much higher BS meter. We don't waste time on things that don't work. Exactly. And from a physiological standpoint, while we talk a lot about the challenges of menopause, the brain fog, or the sleep disturbances, there is also a biological clearing that happens. The drop in oxytocin, the nurturing hormone that keeps us focused on everyone else's needs, can actually lead to a new kind of fierce focus on our own goals. It's like the fog of pleasing others lifts, and for the first time, we can see our own vision clearly. I love that, the fog of pleasing others. I see so many women who come to my office feeling guilty for wanting to start something new. They think they should be focusing on being grandmothers or just slowing down. I had a patient, let's call her Martha. She was 54, a former librarian, and she had this incredible idea for a digital curation service for estate planning, specifically helping families preserve their digital legacies. She was terrified. She said, "Julia, I don't know anything about the tech world. I'm just a librarian." And what did you tell her? We looked at her librarian skills. She wasn't just a librarian. She was an expert in organization, in information architecture, in empathy, and in storytelling. Those are the pillars of a great business. We worked on reframing her age as her greatest asset. In a world of 25-year-old disruptors, a 54-year-old woman with a lifetime of organizational wisdom is a powerhouse. She eventually launched, and it took off because people trusted her. They didn't want a disruptor for their family legacies. They wanted a steward. That's the key. Trust. Experience breeds trust. When you're an entrepreneur at 50, you're not just selling a product, you're selling your lived experience. Your customers aren't just buying a service. They are buying a fact that you've lived through enough to know what actually matters. But let's talk about the fears, Elina, because it's not all sunshine and queen archetypes. there's the very real fear of the tech gap. I hear this so often. I don't understand social media, or I don't know how to build a website.
Oh, absolutely. I felt that too. When I started my digital platform, I didn't know a landing page from a landing strip. But here's the secret of being 50. We know how to learn. We've learned how to do everything in our lives. We learned how to navigate motherhood without a manual. We learned how to navigate complicated careers. Learning a piece of software is nothing compared to that. And we have the resources now to delegate. One of the lessons of entrepreneurship at this age is you don't have to do it all. At 20, you have more time than money, so you do everything yourself. At 50, you usually have a bit more of a cushion, or at least more wisdom to know that your time is better spent on the vision than on trying to figure out how to code a button.
Let's dive into some of the myths. One of the biggest ones I hear is that we don't have the energy anymore. People look at the hustle culture, the 20-somethings working 20 hours a day, and they think, I can't do that.
And my response to that is, why would you want to? Hustle culture is often a sign of inefficiency. At 50, we work smarter. We don't need to work 20 hours a day because we can do in 4 hours what it takes a distracted 20-year-old 12 hours to do. We have focus. We have discipline.
And biologically, if we take care of our health, if we manage our cortisol, prioritize our sleep, and keep our metabolic health in check, we have a very sustainable kind of energy. It's not the frantic, caffeine-fueled energy of youth. It's the steady, marathon runner energy of maturity. It's the slow burn that actually builds empires.
I also want to address the myth of the window has closed. There's this societal narrative that if you haven't made it by 40, you're done. But if you look at the statistics, the most successful startups are actually founded by people over 45. The Silicon Valley image of the college dropout in a hoodie is the exception, not the rule. The rule is that experience, networks, and emotional intelligence are the true predictors of business longevity.
I love that. It's so true. Think about the network a 50-year-old woman has. She knows people in every industry. She has friends who are lawyers, accountants, marketers, or just other wise women. When she starts a business, she's not starting from zero. She's starting from a massive web of connections she's been spinning for 3 decades. Let's talk about the alignment part of our title today. Creating something aligned with who you've become. This is where the magic happens. Many women spend their first 30 years of adulthood being who they should be. The good daughter, the dedicated employee, the perfect mother. By 50, those masks often start to feel heavy. They don't fit anymore. They itch. They really do. You start to feel this friction between the external role and the internal reality. Entrepreneurship at this age is often the first time a woman gets to ask, what do I actually value? What is my voice? I had a client who spent her whole life as a high-level corporate accountant. She was brilliant at it, but she hated the coldness of it. At 51, she started a boutique consultancy that helped female artists and creatives manage their finances. She combined her technical skill, accounting, with her personal passion, the arts. That is alignment. She wasn't starting over, she was integrating. That's a beautiful way to put it. Integration, not reinvention. You aren't throwing away the last 30 years. You are harvesting the best parts of them to plant a new garden. But what about the fear of failure, Elena? At 50, the stakes feel higher. If you fail at 22, you have 40 years to recover. If you fail at 55, people worry about their retirement savings. That's a very real concern, and it's why I always advocate for calculated courage. You don't have to mortgage your house on a whim. Entrepreneurship at 50 should be strategic. It's about the minimum viable product. Test the waters. Start a side hustle. Use the digital tools we have today that allow you to start a business for almost zero overhead. And psychologically, we have to redefine failure. At this age, failure isn't a catastrophe. It's data. If a business doesn't work, it doesn't mean you are a failure. It just means that specific model didn't work. We have the emotional resilience to handle a no or a setback much better than we did when we were younger, and our entire identity was wrapped up in our performance. I also think we need to talk about the visibility issue. A lot of women feel invisible after 50. They feel like the world isn't looking at them anymore. Which is exactly why they should start a business.
Entrepreneurship is a way to reclaim your visibility. It's a way to say, I am here, I have value, and I am creating the future. When you build something, you are no longer waiting for someone to see you. You are making yourself impossible to ignore. And the world needs what we have. There is a massive wisdom gap in our culture right now. We have plenty of technology, but we are starving for wisdom, for mentorship, for products and services that are built with soul and integrity. That is what the 50-plus entrepreneur brings to the table.
Let's look at some common questions we get. Elena, one that comes up a lot is, how do I deal with the fatigue of starting something new when I'm also dealing with aging parents or still-at-home teenagers, the sandwich generation struggle? This is where the alignment piece is vital. Your business has to fit your life, not the other way around. One of the beauties of being the boss is that you get to design the culture. If you need to work 4 days a week so you can take your mother to her appointments, you build that into your business model. You don't try to mimic a 1950s corporate structure. You create a life-first business. And I'll add to that, your business can actually be your sanctuary. When you are being squeezed by the demands of everyone around you, having a project that is yours, that is an expression of your creativity, can be incredibly energizing. It's not one more thing to do, it's the thing that gives you the strength to do everything else. I've seen that in my own life. When I'm working on a project I love, my brain fog disappears, my energy levels spike. It's like my body says, oh, we're doing something important now? Okay, let's turn the lights on. Passion is a powerful metabolic booster. Another question, I have so many ideas. How do I know which one is the right one? I always say, look for the intersection of what you know, what you love, and what someone is willing to pay for. But at 50, I add a fourth circle, what makes you feel alive? If it's just about the money, you'll burn out. If it's just a hobby, it's not a business. It has to be that sweet spot where your expertise meets a genuine need in the world. And don't be afraid to start small. There's this idea that a startup has to be this massive thing with an office and employees. Some of the most successful entrepreneurs at 50 are solopreneurs. They are consultants, coaches, creators, or makers who run lean, profitable businesses from their dining room tables. Let's share some more stories. I'm thinking of Sarah, a woman I know who spent 30 years as a nurse. At 52, she was burnt out by the healthcare system, but she loved the teaching aspect of nursing. She started a YouTube channel and an online course specifically for daughters of aging parents, teaching them how to navigate the medical system and provide care at home. She's now reaching thousands of people, making more money than she did as a head nurse, and she works from her garden. That's the perfect example of never too late. She didn't leave nursing behind, she evolved it. She took her 30 years of clinical knowledge and turned it into a scalable digital product. She moved from one-on-one care to one-to-many impact. And think about the freedom that gives her. She's no longer on her feet for 12-hour shifts. She's honoring her body's need for a different pace while still honoring her mind's need for challenge and contribution. Elena, what would you say to the woman listening right now who has a secret dream? Maybe she's written half a cookbook, or she has a design for a sustainable clothing line, or she wants to open a small consulting firm, but she's staring at her 50-year-old face in the mirror and thinking, don't be ridiculous.
I would tell her to look closer at that face. Look at the lines around your eyes. Those are your credentials. They show you've laughed, you've cried, you've survived. Look at the gray in your hair. That's your silver armor. You aren't old, you are ripe. And in nature, ripeness is the moment just before the fruit provides the most nourishment. If you don't share your gift now, it will wither on the vine. The world doesn't just want your new idea, it needs your matured perspective. And I would add, the ridiculous thing isn't starting a business at 50. The ridiculous thing is spending the next 30 years of your life, because let's be honest, we're living longer than ever, suppressing who you are. If you live to be 90 and you're 50 now, you have 40 years left. That is an entire lifetime. You could have a whole 20-year career, retire, and then have another 20-year career. That is such a vile point. The life expectancy math has changed, but our career math is still stuck in the 1900s. We have to update our internal software. 50 isn't the beginning of the end. It's the halfway point of the adult journey.
It's about the legacy, too. What do we want to show our children or the younger women in our lives? Do we want to show them that life is a slow decline into irrelevance? Or do we want to show them that life is a continuous process of evolution and bravery? I want to be the woman who shows them that you can always level up, that you can always bet on yourself. As we start to wrap up this conversation, I want to leave our listeners with a small exercise. Tonight, take a piece of paper. On one side, write down all the things you've learned in the last 30 years. Not just job skills, but life skills. Resilience, empathy, crisis management, negotiation. On the other side, write down that ridiculous dream. Then, look for the bridges between them. You'll be surprised at how many there are. And remember, your body is changing, your life is changing, but that doesn't mean you are breaking down. You are being refined. The heat of this stage of life, the hormonal heat, the social heat, is meant to burn away what isn't you, so that what is you can finally shine. It really is never too late to create something aligned with who you've become, because who you've become is someone worth knowing and someone whose work the world is waiting for. Thank you for joining us today on She's Evolving. This conversation is just the beginning. We want to hear your stories. Are you starting something new? Are you facing these fears? Reach out to us. You are not alone in this. There is a whole army of women over 50 who are quietly and not so quietly changing the world. Share this episode with a friend who needs that extra nudge to believe in her own second act. Keep evolving, keep dreaming, and remember, the best version of your business and yourself is still ahead of you. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, take that first small step. You've earned it. Goodbye for now, and stay bold. Stay inspired. We are right here with you.
You know, Elena, we've been talking about the internal drive to start something new, but we have to address the elephant in the room. Many women who write to us say, I have the idea, I have the passion, but I'm terrified of the technology and the pace of the modern market. They feel like the world has sped up and they are trying to hop onto a moving train. It's a very real fear, Julia, but here's the medical perspective on that. Our brains don't stop being capable of learning just because we've hit 50. In fact, while the processing speed might slightly change, our ability to synthesize complex information, what we call crystallized intelligence, is actually at its peak. When an entrepreneur starts at 50, she isn't just learning a new tool, she is applying decades of pattern recognition to that tool. If she needs to learn how to use an Instagram algorithm or a CRM system, she's doing it with the wisdom of someone who understands human behavior, which is something a 22-year-old is still figuring out. That is such an empowering way to look at it. It's not about being behind. It's about bringing a deeper foundation to the tools. I often tell my patients that the imposter syndrome at 50 feels heavier because we feel we should already be masters of everything by now. We feel embarrassed to be beginners. But there is a profound liberation in being a beginner with experience. You can ask the stupid questions because your self-worth is no longer tied to being the smartest person in the room, but to being the person most aligned with her purpose. Exactly. And let's talk about the physical energy required for this. A common myth is that at 50, we are winding down. From a hormonal standpoint, yes, the drop in estrogen can lead to fatigue or brain fog if not managed. But once we address those health foundations, nutrition, sleep, and perhaps hormone replacement therapy if indicated, many women report a surge of menopausal zest. It's a real phenomenon. Once the nurturing hormones of the child-rearing years settle down, many women find a new kind of aggressive, focused energy for their own projects. It's like a second wind.
Menopausal zest. I love that term. It's the moment when the people-pleasing filter finally breaks and you realize you don't have another 50 years to waste on things that don't matter. I remember a client who started a sustainable textile business at 54. She told me, Julia, for 30 years, I built other people's dreams because I thought I had to be useful. Now, I want to be significant. That shift from useful to significant is the heart of entrepreneurship at this stage. It's about creating something that is a mirror of your soul. That's beautiful. And it brings us to another myth, that failure at 50 is a catastrophe. People think, if I fail now, I've lost my retirement, my time, my dignity. But the truth is, most women at 50 are much better at risk management than they were at 25. They aren't gambling, they are investing.
They know how to pivot. They've survived divorces, health scares, and career shifts. They are resilient by definition. And that resilience is the greatest asset in business. If a deal falls through or a product launch doesn't go as planned, a 50-year-old woman has the emotional tools to say, okay, that was a lesson, not a death sentence. She has a perspective that only time can buy. We've covered so much today, Julia, from the physiological changes that actually support this new phase to the psychological shedding of old skins. If you're listening to this and you're 50, 55, or even 65, and you have a spark of an idea, don't dismiss it as a midlife crisis. See it as a midlife awakening. Your body has changed, your mind has matured, and you are finally ready to lead from a place of authenticity.
I couldn't agree more. Your business at this age doesn't have to be the next global empire, unless you want it to be. It just has to be yours. It has to be aligned with the woman you fought so hard to become. Don't let the fear of too late stop you. In many ways, everything you've done up until now was just the apprenticeship for what you are about to build.
As we wrap up this episode of She's Evolving, I want you to take a moment today to look at your hands. Think of everything they've built, everyone they've held, and everything they've overcome. Those are the hands of a creator. Your story isn't over. The most interesting chapter might just be starting. Thank you for being with us today. If this conversation resonated with you, if it gave you that little nudge you needed to dust off that old business plan or finally sign up for that course, please share it with a friend. Let's start a movement of women who aren't just aging, but evolving into their most powerful selves. We'll be back next week with more honest conversations about health, mind, and the beauty of the second half of life. Until then, take care of your body, honor your mind, and remember, it is never, ever too late to create something beautiful. See you next time. Keep evolving.